What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. On this video, I'm going to start tearing the engine and front subframe, front bumper, hood, fenders, and headlights off of the Veloster so that I can do a test fit of the, wherever the hell it is, that subframe from the Genesis. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to go ahead and start tearing, disconnecting what needs to be disconnected so that I can drop the whole subframe out as one unit. I'm also going to remove both headlights, the front bumper, the core support. I'm going to get it basically like the front of the Genesis. And then after I do that, then I'm going to pull the metal frame for the dash just because it's easier to get to the bolts in the firewall when the engine's out of the way. I can still remove the dash with the engine in the car, but it's easier to do it with the engine out. So that's what I'm going to work on. So hope you enjoy. So I've already covered how to remove the engine in my Veloster engine removal videos, so I'm not going to go over that. The only thing that I'm going to cover is the stuff that's regarding removing the exterior body panels and dropping the subframe itself. So that will be different, but as far as pulling the engine, I'm not going to cover any of that because I've already covered it. All right, to remove the front bumper, you got a Phillips head screw right here in the corner going up. Pull that Phillips head screw and then pull the bumper clips out. You've got a push clip here, a push clip here. Both of mine broke. I'm going to have to buy new ones. And then you got 4 10mm nuts here. You've got 2 more push clips in the bottom corner holding the splash pan to the front bumper. And then you've got 2 more over here holding the splash pan to the front bumper and another Phillips head screw here. Take all those out and then the front bumper will come off. All right, slight correction. You have 6 clips across the bottom. You have 2 in the splash guard, 1 in this front splash guard there, 1 in this front splash guard there, and then 2 in that splash guard. And then now we got it down to this far. I can take the front bumper support. So I can take this right here out. Be these 4 bolts right here. Actually, no, I can leave that with the core support because I'm going to take the whole core support out together. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the headlights. You got a bolt here, a bolt in the back, a bolt right here, and then a bolt up here. I think. No, you got a clip up here. So 3 bolts in each headlight. I'm going to pull the headlights. All right, so to remove the front core support, you have 3 10mm bolts coming in from the bottom on the splash pan. Then you have 5 bolts for each one of the front bumper mounts. And then you have a 10mm coming in right here and a 10mm coming in over there on the side. And then you have to disconnect the horn, and you have to disconnect the ambient air temperature. You have to disconnect the hood open switch. And I disconnected the radiator fan, but you don't have to. And then I took the radiator top brackets for the radiator pins off so that I could just pull the radiator out. So I took them off and turned them upside down. So they're actually upside down on the core support. But now that I've got that off, I'm going to go ahead and remove the whole airbox assembly over here. Go ahead and get this completely removed. Get the washer fluid tank completely removed. Get the battery, relay fuse panel box, and ECU and all that removed, battery tray, and get it down to where I'm ready to start pulling the motor out. Okay, so time for an update on the progress on the Veloster. Got all the wiring pulled off the motor. AC hoses are disconnected from the firewall. I'm going to disconnect the heater hoses here in just a second. Motor's essentially ready to come out if I just disconnect the exhaust and the CV axles. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop the subframe with the CV axles and the steering rack and all that, and then I'll pull the engine. The engine's going to be the last thing to come out. Once I pull the engine, then I'll pull the wiring harness and all that. But working on taking the ABS wiring off of the wheel speed sensor off the wheel. Removing the wheel liner. So the wheel liner is held in with Phillips head push pin clips. There's one there, there's one there, and then one here. There's supposed to be one here, but mine's missing. And then you got Phillips head screws for your splash guard here, and maybe one more. Yeah, underneath. You got one underneath. And that feels like it. You may have another one over here in this corner. I think there is. Yeah, it feels like there's another one over there in that corner. I'll update after I get the panel off. All right, guys, so I just got done taking off the 4 bolts that hold the subframe to the car. I popped both CV axles loose and took all the bolts out of all the nuts off the top of the struts. So now I'm gonna drop the subframe out. All right, so we got the whole front subframe out, sitting over there. Motor's ready to come out. All I gotta do is disconnect 2 heater hoses and then disconnect the motor mounts, and it's ready to come out. All right, guys, so I got the engine out, transmission out, subframes removed. Engine and transmission are sitting over there. I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting the wiring harness out of here and getting the slave cylinder and the clutch or the shifter cables and everything out of here, and drop the exhaust. And once I get the exhaust out of the way, then I'm gonna wheel the front subframe with the engine and transmission from the Genesis over here and get it sitting underneath the car, just to get a look at how it's gonna look inside the engine bay. All right, guys, I'm trying to get the V6 to just temporarily stick in here and see how everything's gonna line up. I'm a little bit to the passenger side. You can see with the shock being out. Well, that's not what I wanted to have happen. So the shock should come pretty close to lining up, but the brake booster is going to be in the way, and the fuel lines. You can see the whole thing needs to shift over that way, probably about 3 inches. If I shift everything that way, it should line up pretty decent. I'm gonna have to trim a pretty good bit of stuff, like over here off the edge. You got that piece right there that holds the battery. I may try and leave those so that I can put the battery where it was. But I mean, the engine still has to come up a pretty good bit. So it looks like the engine's gonna sit all the way up to the top of here. I may have to do a high-rise hood or something to get it to clear. But yeah, the transmission tunnel absolutely must be changed out. The transmission doesn't even fit into the tunnel at all. You can see it sticking out right there. The tunnel is way too narrow, so I'm gonna have to widen that tunnel out. It looks like my cross member is gonna bolt up to the frame rails pretty good, so I should be able to reuse that. I might have to make some brackets to make it a little bit longer, but it looks like it's gonna work. And then, yeah. So, at least I know the motor will somewhat fit. I think what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna continue pulling the Veloster apart and get all the electronics out of it and everything. And then I'm more than likely gonna separate the engine and transmission from the subframe, and then just try and fit the subframe, then I'll add the engine to it. Because trying to move the subframe and the engine all together with the axles and everything, it's a real pain in the butt. So I'm probably gonna separate that and make it a little bit easier to maneuver it around. But now that I got that basically test fit, I mean, I haven't bolted shit in, it's still way off, but I know where I gotta go. So now I'm gonna start tearing the rear axle, gas tank out. I already removed the exhaust. So here's my factory exhaust. And I don't know if anybody'd be interested in this old Borla exhaust, but I got axle back Borla exhaust that I'll sell. I'm not gonna give it away, but I'll sell it. It's just dirty from living on a damn dirt road, but yeah, it's still good. No dents or dings, no rust, so somebody might want it. But now that I've got, now that I've got the engine set in there roughly, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the rear axle and the gas tank and the evap, and get the rest of the electronics out of here and pull the rest of the dash. All right, so in order to remove the metal frame for the dash, you have to take this off because there's 2 bolts that are coming in on the top that come in from the back. You can see them. Maybe you can't, but I'll show you when you get in here, but they're right there. So to pull these off, you've got a little access cover over top of your passenger side one. It's just held in with clips. Pop it off, pull these center caps out of the wiper arms, and then it's a 14mm nut, and then just pry them off and they'll pop right off. All right, once you get the wiper arms off, there's a little push clip here in the corner and over on the other side, and then you just pull the cowl forward, disconnect your windshield sprayer line, and then the whole cowl will come off. So there's the whole cowl. So now that I've got the cowl off, I'll be able to get to those 2 bolts. So these are the 2 bolts that are going into the to the dashboard. So I can take those out, and then I can get access to the other bolts and pull the whole metal dash out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove these 2 bolts, and then you've got 2 bolts behind these covers, 1 behind each cover. You got 2 down there on the center console, bolting it in. You've got 2 more over on the other door, just like these. And then there's a couple 10mm bolts holding the AC and the blower motor to the firewall. So I'm going to pull all that, and I'm going to get the metal dash out of here. All right, so I got the metal dash out. So you have the 2 bolts on the passenger side are 10mm, and then you got 1 coming in here that's a 10mm. You got 1 right there and 1 right there. They're both 10mm. You got 2 10mm here, and you got a 10mm here, 12mm, and a 12mm. So right there and right there. And then those 2 12s coming in from where the windshield wiper motor is. So now that that's out, now I'm going to work on pulling the shifter out and pulling the pedals out, getting all that shit out of here. And then I'll carry on to the next function. All right, to remove the shifter with the cables, it's 2 12mm nuts on the firewall, and then 4 12mm bolts holding the shifter plate to the transmission tunnel. So now that I've got that out, I'm gonna go ahead and pull these pedals. So the gas pedal's held in with a 12 here and a 12 here. The clutch pedal is held in with 12 here, and another 12 back there. Brake is held in with this bolt up here, and then the 4 holding the brake booster. Pull this clip to disconnect the master cylinder from the brake pedal. Same with this one. Pull that clip to disconnect the master cylinder from the brake pedal. All right, so I got all the pedals out. That's the engine wiring harness, the entire harness that goes into the dash and everything. So I've got the dash completely gutted. The only wiring left in the car is the main harness, and I am going to remove that, but I'm not going to remove it today. I'll remove it later. But I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to pull the engine and transmission off the subframe, and then I'm going to try and fit the subframe to the chassis. See where we get. All right, so I just got done removing the motor from the subframe. I'm going to go ahead and actually try and dry fit this subframe and see where everything's going to fall, and see how much I have to modify these front frame rails right here and right here. I hope I don't have to modify them a lot, but we'll find out here in a little bit. All right, so I was able to get the shocks to mount in the original locations for the Veloster on both sides. So all I had to do was rotate the hat on the spring perch. All I had to do was rotate it until the bolt holes lined up. I did have to open these holes up a little bit. I just used my step bit and opened them up a little bit. Once I get a definite mark of where the bolts go, I'll put a Sharpie mark around them and mark where they go. And then I'll fill in the backside with weld and make sure the hole's dead center where it needs to be. And that way I don't have any, because like right now, you can see a little gap on that bolt right there. You can see I had to set it in towards the center a little bit. I had to do that on each one because the bolt pattern's a little bit more narrow. But that being said, all of it lined up pretty good, and it looks like the wheels are sitting straight. So the subframe is so you can see it sitting in a little bit from here and from back there, likewise over here. So what I think I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have the subframe sitting all the way against the front of here. I'll have it maybe a 1/16 of an inch gap just so it doesn't rattle. But I'm gonna put this to where the subframe's right up against these front frame horns. And then what I may wind up doing, I don't know how I'm gonna do this yet, but what I may wind up doing is making some little brackets that bolt into here and then bolt into here. Same on all 4 points. Or what I may do is I may cut the frame rails out of the Genesis. So I might cut that frame rail and the frame rail on the other side and then weld them to the side of this frame rail. I don't want to cut this frame rail because it messes with the structural integrity of the car. So if I can just weld to this, or if I can bolt brackets to it, I would prefer that instead of cutting this and having to make a new rail. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish pulling the rear axle. So I'm going to finish pulling the rear axle and the gas tank and stuff. And I'm going to get the whole car up in the air. And I'm going to start taking a look at how the rear axle is going to fit and all that. But yeah, it looks like the subframe is going to fit pretty good. The only issue that I see with this is with the subframe sitting this far back, I may have to take the firewall back a little bit. But I'll figure that out because I got to get the subframe to where it sits behind here so it doesn't interfere with the core support or the bumper. So once I get this fit on both sides and get the subframe actually sitting where it's supposed to, then I'll set the motor back in there and see what I need to do to the firewall. I may have to push the firewall back like an inch, but we'll see. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up this video. It's a lot of stuff going on, but hopefully I'll be able to get that subframe fit in the next video and get it bolted in. I don't know if that'll be the case because I may have to have custom brackets made, which is a good thing. I'm a machinist by trade, so I can make whatever brackets I need to make that work. The problem is just finding one of my customers that'll let me use one of their machines because I had to sell my milling machine when I bought my house. But it'd be basic brackets. But I may wind up, like I said, I may wind up cutting the frame rails out of the Genesis and welding them to the insides of these frame rails, bolt it up to the subframe and then stick it up in there, figure out my height on my motor and figure out my height on my suspension, and then just weld it in to where the motor's at the right height and the suspension's at the right height. But I mean, I'm going to have to modify all kinds of stuff on this car. So I don't want anybody thinking this is going to be some kind of direct swap or anything. This is a total custom fab job. It's going to be all Hyundai parts, but it's still total custom work. So don't get any grand ideas thinking that you're going to be able to do this with just bolting parts in. You got to have a lot of different skill sets to get this done. So anyway, I'm going to work on getting the subframe done next week for the next video. And we'll carry on from there. But seems like I'm making pretty good progress on this thing. I'm happy with the progression. And just really appreciate everybody tuning in and checking out the build. If this video helped you out in any way, or if you like what you saw, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Let your friends see what I'm doing. And I'll catch y'all in the next video. Thanks, and have a great one.